From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back to Super Bowl preparations for these Kansas City Chiefs. The story of today is that they're getting things out of the way. There's plenty of practice. There's plenty of film work to be doing. The team right now in Kansas City is getting ready. They're doing their press so you can have pretty pictures on the telecast. I'm here with Chris Clark from Chiefs Digest, and this is like one of the necessary evils, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still fun to be able to see them being able to do that in the background. They've got the logo on their uniforms. And it's always fun to be able to see the players in their own element, just having fun. So that's going to be a good thing. And I really do enjoy being able to see the Super Bowl logo on the Chiefs uniform. Gotta admit, that's fun.
Not something you see all the time, huh?
Nope, not something you see all the time at all. So,
well, and I'm just glad that they schedule it in a way that gets it out of the way and get all the fluff gone as much as you can. There's going to be press they have to do at night during the preparation week. There's going to be all kinds of things in the lead up. So anything you can get squared away and get back to actually looking at football, I think is the best plan.
No, I completely agree. And it doesn't surprise me that they're getting it out of the way today. They're going to have practice. Reed said they're going to have practice. This isn't going to be a normal bye week. Matt talked about that as well. So you kind of expect that they're going to be doing full practices or mainly maybe some walkthroughs this week, but they have all this other stuff that they've got to get done and get prepared for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a heavy load. So, hey, good for them for getting out ahead of it. That's not the only thing that's going on. And while it doesn't, on a day like this where they're just doing press, we don't have any updates on anything injury-wise or how they're going to go about it or who's going to be active. One thing that is going to be interesting is you do have a little bit of news about what's going on this weekend at the Pro Bowl. They're trying out a couple of new wrinkles.
Yeah, and I really don't like the second one. It's all about flexing or the receiver being able to move. I think that's just going to get confusing to people, and I think it's going to be causing a lot of people to ask questions. I don't really want to talk about it too much, honestly, because it's pretty detailed. And I think if you go check out the Locked On Chiefs podcast Twitter feed, you can go see the rule and read it yourself. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I just think it's going to be confusing. But the other one is really interesting to me, and this is something that has been talked about before. But after I've read it for like the third time, I realized it says options after a successful field goal or try attempt. So if they miss the extra point, they're not able to do this. Or if they don't get a 2-point conversion, I guess maybe they're not able to do this. But it does say after a successful attempt. So, that was interesting. But basically, this is going to be a situation that would take over for onside kicks and maybe even just completely rule out having to kick the ball off most of the game. Because your two options are you elect to give the other team the ball at the 25-yard line.
Their 25, right?
Their 25-yard line, correct. Or you get to keep the ball at your own 25-yard line, but you start with a 4th and 15.
So basically, the net result would be the same if you elect to give it back to them. They get it at the 25 as though it were a touchback actual kickoff.
Yep.
Or you get one chance, one play to get 15 yards in order to continue a drive, or else you hand them the ball. If it's an incomplete, you hand them the ball at your 25 with your backs to the wall.
Yep, this pretty much would eliminate onside kicks. I wonder how many times this is going to eliminate kickoffs, the possibility of it eliminating kickoffs completely. I do think that there's going to be special teams coaches like Dave Tobe who will still probably kick the ball off from time to time because he likes to try to get them pinned inside the 25. But this will greatly reduce possible injuries as well.
Yeah, I would think so too, but I got to think for it to be adopted, it's got to be a bigger carrot than that. 15 yards is one thing. It should be difficult. I get that. But your reward is now you're at your 40. That doesn't seem necessarily worth the risk of possibly coming up short and giving it to them at your 25 going in.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to happen every single time, but if you're looking at end of game scenarios where you're trying to do an onside kick, you're not getting it much past your 40 anyway. If you recover, generally you're going to be at the 45. So it's 5 yards closer. But at this point, I mean, a 4th and 15, I would think, especially with a team like Mahomes, if you're down late in the game, that gives you more of an opportunity to come back and win. So I do think that that's going to be an interesting aspect to it.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with this Pro Bowl, and maybe they'll even look at it in the preseason. But that's an interesting wrinkle that's going on right now, folks, while they're all in prep mode for this Super Bowl 54. We're going to get with an old friend here in a minute. Seth Keysor, The Athletic, will join us when we get back. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can improve your performance and have that extra confidence.
Listen up. BlueChew.com. That's blue like the color blue. Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on full stomach. And since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Now, this isn't just for guys who can't perform. It's for any guy who wants extra function to enhance their performance in the bedroom.
Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package with no in-person doctor's visits, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com. You'll get your shipment free when you use the promo code LOCKEDON. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BlueChew.com. That's promo code LOCKEDON to try it for free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast. We talk about football athletes' physical fitness a lot, but there's a whole other side to it, and that's mental fitness. Calm, the #1 app for sleep and meditation, has teamed up with LeBron James to help train your mind. LeBron and Calm know that your mind is like the rest of your body, and Calm can help train your brain so that you sleep better, have less stress, and perform at your best. For LeBron James, sleep is an important part of his mental fitness routine. He says getting good sleep and finding time to rest is one of the most important, valuable things I can do for my body and mind. And if you head to calm.com/lockedon, you'll get 40% off a Calm membership today. With Calm, you have access to the nature scenes that LeBron loves, like rain and leaves falling, and so much more like sleep stories and meditations. You can join LeBron in using Calm with a 40% discount to an annual membership at calm.com/lockedon. Unlock content to help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better. Get started at calm.com/lockedon. That's calm.com/lockedon. And it's been a while, but I know you guys have been waiting for this, and I honestly couldn't think of anybody better to geek out with. So welcome back, Seth Keysor of The Athletic and First in Your Hearts. How are you, pal?
I'm doing really well. First in your heart. You know, I'm going to introduce myself to everyone that way. It's me, Seth Keysor, First in Your Hearts. I like that a lot.
I'll get you a t-shirt. It'll work great.
But yes, I'm doing really awesome, man, because the Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. I can't say it enough times. They are playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's awesome.
Just take a few minutes over and over and over. The number 50 will come up, I'm sure, a few times. But
yes.
I mean,
never in my lifetime, never in your lifetime.
Right. I'm not that old.
I know. Well, I mean, you know, it's closer for you, but that's fine. Sorry. But no, it's just crazy. So I was like, fine. Like, I was really geeked out. I watched the game with my sister and I was super excited and stuff. But like, I mean, I was doing okay, but my wife wasn't with me. So I was messaging her, oh, the Chiefs won. They're going to the Super Bowl. And I voice texted it to her because I voice text everything. And I started like welling up while I was voice texting, like, they made the Super Bowl. It's gonna be okay. And it was awesome, man. It's one of those moments you're not going to forget.
I tell you what, I had the exact opposite reaction. I sat there being analytical, trying to figure out what they were doing and why and how it was going to. My wife's like, why don't you get more excited and start screaming or something?
Yeah, you were working.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, you know, and we might as well talk about that. Neither of us are going to this Super Bowl. We're not going to cover it any more than we normally do, right? And I, for one, I think you agree, I'm pretty happy with that situation.
I am pretty happy too. The Athletic hasn't let us know who they want going. I mean, I know Nate will.
Yeah.
And they haven't broached that subject yet, but I don't really want to. I want to watch the game and just enjoy the game. And then sure, after the game, you know, I'll write articles, I'll do radio and stuff and whatever, but I just want to enjoy it. This job does have a tendency sometimes to take your fanhood a little bit.
Yeah.
And I realized it was this year that I just decided, and I think I've said this to you before, but I really made a conscious decision because it was the first time I really felt it happening, where I just, the minute this stops being fun and I'm no longer a fan, I'm done. This is a side gig for me. This is a side hustle. I'll go back to, posting stuff whenever I feel like it on Twitter or something, but I want to enjoy this as a fan because it almost took that from me. And then, you let it wash over you. It's so awesome, the feeling. And the other thing is, like, it's not nerve wracking. Like, now that they've made it to the Super Bowl, I'm feeling pretty relaxed about whatever happens. Like, and I think part of that is Mahomes syndrome, where it's like, you know what? I think they'll have some shots at this over the course of his career. I think they will. Year 1, AFC Championship. Year 2, Super Bowl. I think we're probably going to be here in the future. So I'm feeling surprisingly relaxed. Now, once the game starts, I'm probably going to be a wreck.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. But I know where you're coming from. And I keep going back to, this is the evolution of when I first became a Chiefs fan, which was the early 90s. And
Right.
you had Marty Ball, and you were constantly in the playoffs, and you were always what we used to term as within reach. But this is the real, like, any given Sunday, he could, they might not, have cap issues. They might not have the same team that they can field a defense like this in 3 years from now. But they're always going to be, with that quarterback, within striking distance.
Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it. Like, it's that step. I almost wrote about this, but I decided, because I actually had people ask me, are you going to write about this from a fan experience? Like, after the Super Bowl, I will. Because win or lose the Super Bowl, and I think they've got a good chance at winning. I think they're a much better team than Green Bay. Everyone that's like, oh, man, did you see what they did to Green Bay? I think Kansas City's much better than Green Bay. Barely beat the Chiefs without Mahomes.
Right.
Like, that was a flawed team. And Rodgers is not Rodgers from 3 or 4 years ago. He's just not. And so, anyway, for me, though, the biggest thing, I like that you made that delineation between, like, being in the hunt or kind of like, to where you're like a playoff contender. This feels like they've taken that step. They're no longer a playoff contender. They are a Super Bowl contender, obviously, because they're in the Super Bowl. But it's like you almost had to break through that barrier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's significant. And I'm sure there'll be another talk about it when Andy Reid decides to retire, when he's got 4 or 5 under his belt. I think he'll feel better. But, like, that's those two in particular. Everyone talks about the franchise quarterback getting you over the hump. Well, the hump's gone, folks.
Right.
This could be a year in, year out possibility now.
Right. Like you said, it's going to be different when Mahomes gets paid. They're going to need to. They can't afford to have misses once Mahomes gets paid, right? So it'll be harder because you can't have and look, Sammy Watkins played an awesome game and he showed where his value is, I think, with the Titans really trying to take away Hill and really trying to take away Kelsey. He showed this is one of the first games where I felt like, okay, Watkins showed why they need him in this game and they need him at that level. And so, it was awesome for him, but in terms of what they've generally gotten out of him, that $16 million a year thing has been kind of not terrific, right? Or Hitchens' contract, they can afford to have those things that are sort of misses, even though they're sort of hits too, right? They can do that right now because of Mahomes' contract. Once that contract's $40 million a year, and it's gonna be, if not more, then you can still pay guys. You can still pay Chris Jones. You can still do these things, but you better make sure that you're paying all the right guys because suddenly the room's going to be a lot tighter and you can't afford to really miss. It's not about paying big money, but it's about who you pay. So it'll be harder, but it feels like they'll be in it every year. Like, unless they have just a garbage roster, Mahomes, I think, can drag anyone to a victory.
Yeah, and I like what you said about Sammy, and I'm sure you heard the comments that Veach made about, we brought people in like this in order to take the step forward. And that's all right. You're a busy man, but that happens. But the big thing to me was, like you said, Sammy stepped up in this game. They might need him again next time. Right. Next year, it's got to be somebody else because of the totals. And that does put more stress on. You don't have to hit home runs every year in the draft.
Right.
But you got to hit doubles.
Yep.
You can't have Speaks, who literally has not produced appreciable stats in 2 seasons now. Obviously, a lot of injury, but still, that's a pick that isn't producing for you. And picks are going to get, at least the first through third rounders are going to be more and more important as 3-4 guys get the big chunks of this cap.
Absolutely. And you also have to factor in that people who play for the Chiefs, traditionally, the Chiefs have managed to keep a lot of free agents, generally speaking. If they win the Super Bowl, and even if they don't, if they get to the Super Bowl, whatever, they are going to get poached more. They're going to lose guys, especially, on defense. They've been used to being able to keep whoever they wanted because the defense sucked. Right. No one was like, oh, we better go poach some of Kansas City's guys, which that'd be weird if they did. But now with the defense stepping up, you're going to start seeing that. Like Demarcus Robinson, for example, he's probably going to get paid somewhere. Not like a crazy amount, but kind of like a Chris Conley situation. And hey, Conley went to Jacksonville and he's done pretty well.
Yeah.
And so you're going to probably see some of that stuff happening. It's just tough to imagine a team that Mahomes can't bring to at least an 11-5 record. Like, you'd have to be a genuinely bad team, and not just bad, but like, really bad, like lacking talent and poorly coached. Because like, I can't picture an Andy Reid coach team with Patrick Mahomes at the helm that doesn't go 10-6, 11-5 at least. I just can't see it.
I mean, he does have to have targets. A lot of this offense is based on his arm, so you have to have speed. So for a wide receiver class that's coming in this draft, people, there's going to be speed there. Look for how they choose to bring that in. I think Hardman stepping in for Watkins is a pretty easy transition, in my opinion, but they need depth there. They need more of it.
Yeah. There's one other thing, but we'll hit that when we come back.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the only thing that can hurt him is injury.
Right.
And if they shore up a couple of things along the offensive line, I'm sure you and I are pretty close on where we think that should happen. That's the question mark for me as you look at, next year, 2022, how are they going to get there and protect him that long?
Right. And that'll be interesting because they've invested pretty heavily along the offensive line. They're going to need to draft well. But I mean, it's so funny because like these conversations, normally when we've had them this time of the year, it's been, how can we get over that hump? And it's like, we don't need to. We're there. This team is good enough to win a Super Bowl. And we knew that last year, but there was almost kind of that little doubt. It's like, okay, yeah, you're an offsides penalty away, but were you really good enough to win the Super Bowl? This makes me a little madder at D Ford, honestly. This could be like a repeat year. This could be because if you win back-to-back Super Bowls, you go down in history. Like, winning a Super Bowl is obviously great, but back-to-back Super Bowls is like, there's not many teams that have done that.
Yeah.
And they just had to look. They're to quote Frank Clark. I'm not going to quote Frank Clark because I don't think my brand can handle. I don't think my brand can handle me quoting Frank Clark. But it's so cool to know that the stuff that we have to think about now is how to sustain where they're at, not how to try to take another step forward. Because it's always been that, they've just been a step short. They've been like when the Bengals were actually not horrible.
I don't go back that far.
But I mean, like, if you go back to like when people thought maybe Dalton might kind of be it and Marvin Lewis, had a good rep. Although in hindsight, maybe Marvin Lewis is a pretty good coach and, that entire franchise is just gross. But anyway, with AJ Green, like when they had really good defenses like under Zimmer and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was the level that the Chiefs were at for years. A good team that you knew would make the playoffs, but no one was really afraid to play them in the playoffs. Yeah. Even after Alex Smith's best season, that 2017, no one was like, oh man, Alex Smith and the Chiefs are coming. Whereas now, like, you hear the way they talk, like Mike Lombardi just wrote something for The Athletic this week, just saying that every AFC West team has to plan their whole offseason, going to mobile, looking at all that, and just thinking, okay, how do we deal with the fact that we probably are going to be a wild card team pretty much every year? Yeah. Like, how are we going to deal with playing Mahomes twice a year? Oh, that run stopper looks good. Who cares? Ooh, that guy's a good pass rusher. Yeah, did he run a sub 4.8 40? Because he needs to be fast enough to run down Mahomes. And so it's cool, man. Like, the Chiefs are the team that other teams need to start trying to figure out. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on those franchises too. So that always bodes well as well. But before we go too far down this road, and we will do this in the offseason where we can take our time, this game, the way they performed and how it looks going forward, neither of us has seen the L22 yet. Thanks, NFL.com.
Yeah, for the love of God.
But just from your replay, I watched it on condensed again, so I've seen the television again. Sure. But still, just the attitude is what comes across to me the most. I thought the secondary played good, but the front seven is really where I thought this game was sealed up and down all day long. I
agree with that. And that's somewhat surprising. And I appreciate Mike Pennell. I appreciate obviously having Chris Jones back. I appreciate Xavier Williams being back helped. He had a couple of nice plays that I noticed. He's a good fit for the type of running that the Titans do, even though they like kind of doing some of that outside zone. It requires a little more movement. Williams is a guy who can move a little bit more than you'd expect for a wide body.
Yeah.
And so despite me knowing that, I didn't expect them to handle Tennessee's offensive line quite as well, because I just got done watching Tennessee's offensive line handle the Ravens. And they got like Brandon Williams up front. Like, that's no joke. They got a big, strong defensive line. And it just occurred to me, I'm like, man, that's just crazy seeing that. And then it just occurred to me that, Mike Pennell's about as big and strong as anyone you're going to find. And he's just such a great fit. He's actually what I'm going to be writing about next. He's a guy he's only going to play 15, 20, maybe 25 snaps a game. Maybe. Right. But the need was so great there, although they have Noddy. But the need was so great for one more wide body that could be dominant at the point of attack. Because Xavier Williams has never quite been dominant at the point of attack. Whereas Pennell is like, nah, dude, I see you, but I'm just not going to move. Like, I'm here. It's play strength rather than taking on double teams. Pennell actually breaks blocks. Yes, absolutely. He breaks blocks. He's immovable. Yeah, that play strength. And so they really did dominate up front in a way that I didn't expect. Like Henry, honestly, and I'll be writing about this too. The narratives, they went away from him. Well, they kind of had to. He had a couple of, he had like 3 good runs, but like we're like talking like 1 12-yard run, 1 9-yard run, 1 10-yard run, something like that. But like he was breaking off chunks in previous games. And he was still getting stopped for those like 1-yard run, 0-yard run, 2-yard run. So they had to go away from him because it wasn't sustainable. And that's impressive. That's really impressive. I think the linebackers did better than maybe a lot of people were expecting too. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with what they did. I still feel like, obviously, Hitch's contract, he's going to be back. There's no way around that. But I like what they have in Wilson and Ragland. I'd love to see Ragland come back. Him and Pennell can be fairly cheap guys that can play, like you said, 20, 30 snaps, and that's all you need from them. Because I think when they go to this 49ers game, they don't need those guys as much. Because even though they want to run, they run differently. It's not as much the power game. And I think it's about getting back to the Chiefs' athleticism at the second level that's going to help them more against the Niners. Absolutely. Very different run games. It's interesting how you can have 2 different schemes that are both technically based on outside zone. Yeah. But they're done so differently. Like Shanahan's isn't about strength. It's about blocking angles and spacing and athletes. That's why they've got the 3 running backs, all of whom are plus athletes. You want guys with explosion. And so it's going to be a lot more about sideline to sideline speed. Although that point of attack strength is going to be important too. Because like the Niners, everyone's just a slave to the recent. So, the 49ers, their rushing attack looks like all time. It's like, well, watch the rest of the season. They didn't run the ball all over the Ravens. They couldn't. No. There are multiple teams they couldn't run all over. Green Bay was the Niners are just a terrible matchup for them. And I think that's in part because I think Green Bay's linebackers are just not good against the run. Yeah. And I think it's been a while since I said I think the Chiefs will have a better linebacker group, but I think they have a better linebacker group than Green Bay. I know, right? It's amazing what the second level will do. And Blake Martinez is an athlete. He is like in the Darren Lee mold. He's built to cover more than he is to take on blocks and shed. Right. But I agree with you. I think that they played better. And if I remember right, I don't think they ran all over Seattle either time either. And Seattle's got a very similar group. I would put the Chiefs in terms of athleticism. They're not quite up there with Wagner and Wright. But in terms of how they play the game, what their physical dimensions are, how they take on blocks, I feel that they're pretty similar. I could definitely see that. Especially, I think the Chiefs front 4 is actually a little bit bigger and more imposing. And so it'll be really interesting because all the stuff that the Niners doing does look great. And the Packers do have some really good guys up front. But I don't think top to bottom, the Packers front 7 is as good as the Chiefs, nor do I think they're as well coached. And so the bye week I think is good because the Niners do some things that are kind of unique. But I think this might be a game where I kind of agree with you that like Ragland might not be a great fit for this particular type of run game. The one, because he's not a sideline to sideline guy, but the one exception with that is when they put him as kind of that Sam or that edge guy.
That edge, yep.
Yeah, they're not going to have as much luck, I think, testing the edge when they put Ragland outside of Clark, who's outside of Pennell. It's like none of those guys are getting moved. Now, Kittle gives them an automatic advantage on the edge, but I don't know if Kittle's moving Reggie Ragland. And maybe he moves a lot of guys that he shouldn't. Kittle's a stud.
But I think they use him as a diversion, quite frankly, and they get back to trying because the Chiefs are going to move on him. I don't care how everybody thinks that the Niners are the best defense. I don't care. The Chiefs will move the ball on them. They will put up points, and that will put them in a similar situation. And I'm glad that we didn't get into this because Josh isn't here, but we'll talk about this in the offseason. I thought Andy was smart with how much run he called on the Chiefs side to keep the ball away from them. And like you said, that put them in a position they had to go away from Henry. I think they're going to have to do that too. It's the matchup with Kittle and Sanders to me that I think comes down to how they have to move that offense.
I think so too. Ultimately, Garoppolo is going to have to do more than he's done in the playoffs. Now, the thing is, I think Shanahan is such an excellent play caller that there are going to be at least 3 or 4 plays this game. This always happens with Shanahan. And it happens with Reed too, where Chiefs fans are going to freak out because of how wide open someone is. That's going to happen. Just wait for it to happen. Just accept it. And I'm pretty sure the Chiefs are going to do that to the Niners too. Mm-hmm. I know that with 2 weeks to game plan, I'm in Salah, Salah. There it is. I managed to say it wrong every time somehow.
You get better.
I really don't. So the Salah's been great. Kyle Shanahan's been great as far as coordinators go. But I'll tell you what, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo have a lot more experience. And I think that's going to, way more experience at doing what they're doing and doing it for the Super Bowl. They've been to the Super Bowl before. They both have, both of them in the roles that they're currently in.
And Daly as well.
Yeah, Daly as well. I think they are a better prepared coaching staff to say, this is what we're going to do. And we saw what happens last year. And again, I'm not trying to, because who knows, Salah and Shanahan, they've been great. So who knows, maybe they'll come out way better than I anticipate. But we saw what happens last year when Belichick he had that extra week to prepare, and McVay just wasn't ready for it. And I think there's a chance that you're going to see Reid and Spagnuolo. The Chiefs' defense is so varied in what they do in a way that Green Bay is not, that I think there's a chance that they're going to show San Francisco stuff that San Francisco just hasn't seen on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again. I know we got to get, so say hi to the boys for me over there. Make sure you're checking out everything at The Athletic, folks. It's where you can find Seth's work and his pod, which, is just too much hilarity for me. It hurts my gut, so it is what it is. But
we are quite goofy. That is...
But it's great talking to you again, and we'll hook up soon.
That's it for us today, folks. Thanks for listening today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Ryan Tracy is the founder of Rogue Analytics and the host of RGR Football on YouTube. Follow him there. Chris Clark is a senior analyst at ChiefsDigest.com, where you can get his work. Rate and review at Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your preferred